Committee of the Whole is called to order, and it's 2 o'clock. I thank my colleague, Senator Roy Canata, for being here. And with that, until we get a quorum, we will stay on recess. Thank you. I hope my colleague will show up soon. Committee of the Whole is called to order. We have a quorum. We are now on page 103, chapter 7, part 2, Public Defender Service Corporation. Does anyone like to speak on the Public Defender's Office? If not, Senator Barnett.
Mr. Chair, good afternoon to the people of Guam. Can you just go over the differences, please?
Okay, it's 1.9 million more. And it's for the Civil Law Center and the attorney pay plan is also included in this. That's why the increase. The attorney pay plan and the Civil Law Center.
So is the Civil Law Center, is that a new addition? They had like the Manamku Law Center before, right?
Yeah,
That's part of it.
the programs center is existing program, but for the last couple of years, it's been funding out of ARP. So now those funds are depleting. We made the conscious decision that it is a very critical and vital program, especially for the Manamkos. We decided to go ahead and continue the funding for it in FY2025.
So we were funding it with ARP at this level in previous fiscal years. Do you have the information?
Not totally. If you remember, we said I identifies 1.9, so 1 million. The 950 is for that area of concern. Okay.
Civil Law Center. We're on Public Defender. They said it included.
Is there anything else, Senator Burnett? Senator Barnett, it was funded separately before ARP got involved. Then ARP took a shot at it, but then it's back to us again. That's why it's 1.9.
Okay, Mr. Chair. The question was, though, are we funding it at the same level as the previous fiscal year, but with they're trying to get it funded with local funds, and previously it was funded by ARP, but my question is, was it funded at the same level of $950,000?
They're checking that right now. But prior to the ARP, it was funded by us. We're talking maybe 2-3 years ago. OFB, Senator? Steve?
Yeah, what it is, Senator, is that from last year's budget, we're increasing, I think, by 135,000 from current year FY24 budget. So they're asking a little bit more for the same program in FY25, which is going to be funded completely now out of the general fund.
Do you have anything else, Senator Burnett? Nothing else?
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair, not at this time.
All right, thank you. Anyone else like to speak on the public defenders on part 2? If not, Madam Speaker?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Can you just repeat their increase for the public defender?
1.9
million.
Correct.
1.9 million increase. So the 1 million, okay, and the 9 is for this civil law center. So what about the $1 million increase?
The remaining $1 million, Speaker, is for the, we funded half of the vacancies and for the attorney pay plan.
So it's vacancies for public defender.
Half of them we funded from the request, and then to cover the cost of the attorney pay plan.
Okay, so how many vacancies is that going to give us additional public defenders, right? I hope it's lawyers you're talking about, or somebody.
We'll check. I'm checking right now. The vacancies, the vacant position that we funded, Senator, is for social workers, the attorneys, the senior law clerks, and one administrative assistant.
Okay. As to Section 4, Mr. Chair, it's my understanding when they came in and asked for the authority to take the legal services contract, this is a federally funded contract for legal services for senior citizens that's federally funded. The victims of domestic violence are also funded by grants, and if they were funding this out of ARP before, I think, I don't know. We have shortage of prosecutors. We have a dire need for more money in the Guam Cancer Trust Fund that's been shorted $2 million this year. And so I would move to delete this Section 4 and use this money for the Guam Cancer Trust Fund and allow them to continue these services using the federal funds that they receive. The federal funds are not accounted for in here, but this is a senior citizens legal services contract, federally funded. And it's also, I know that they're also beneficiaries of one of those grants for the domestic violence.
Based on the department's budget, they have approximately about 192 of federal funds available for this program. And from my conversation with Mr. Torrey, you're saying that this program is very much underfunded, and there are a lot of clients coming to the office requesting assistance from the Public Defender Corporation. They, I think, have been trying to accommodate as much as they can, but knowing the number of clients they already have on the list, they're saying it's an easy $1 million by the time they service these people by the end of the year.
Mr. Chair, if I'm point of inquiry.
Yes, point of inquiry?
Yes, sir. I thought I heard it was only a $1 million increase, but according to the document, it's saying $1.9 million.
That's correct. I announced 1.9.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I sure
Just
did.
verify. Okay.
And 900,000 was for the Civil Law Center, which is to assist people. Okay?
Which the Civil Law Center was not in the FY24 budget as well, right? In
No,
section
because
one?
it was ARP, and before that, it was local
Right.
funded.
Okay, thank you, sir.
It
Thank
all started locally funded, and then when the chance was there to get ARP funds,
No.
then it happened.
No, Mr. Chair, this all started, they promised to use federal funds for their senior services program.
Okay, thank you for the correction. Anything else you wanted to bring up, Madam Speaker, so we can move along?
Well, yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to strike this section, and if they need this, that it be done by separate bill, because these things need to be fleshed out. When they first came in to do senior citizens, that was beyond the scope of the public defender at the time. So we authorized it, but they promised that they would do that using federal funds. It's a federally funded contract. And
So what is the amount you're asking to be striked out? 1.9?
the whole section, yes,
The whole section 4?
yes. And
You-
that would free up that money for the Guam Cancer Trust Fund, and I don't think it's going to impede their services. If there's anything they're doing pursuant to senior legal services, that should be pursuant to federally fund the victims of domestic violence. I believe that's also federally funded pursuant to grants that they apply, sub-grants that they.
All right, ma'am, but then, because you don't have an amendment, you'd have to pursue that in a separate chapter then. But it'd be so noted, all the members are aware of it, that you're going to pursue to delete section 4, correct? You understand
So I
that?
can do that in a separate chapter to
Accept it
delete
in
this section?
miscellaneous, yes. You can do it now, you don't have an amendment, okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Senator,
Well,
do you have anything else you wanted to bring up?
Let me just see. All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Senator Fisher, you had
No,
your
I'm sorry,
hands up?
Mr. Chair, just one more thing. Yeah, if you don't mind. One of the meetings that all the lawyers were summoned to this year by the Guam Bar Association was because the courts have imposed on all lawyers a duty to service indigent clients. That they're saying was because the public defenders was conflicted out, the alternate public defender was also conflicted out. And so there was a debate within the Guam Bar, should people who have no expertise at all in criminal defense be appointed to criminal defense, because apparently that's what's happening, right? It's like they're desperate for criminal defense. And so that's why I'm saying a separate discussion of this might be warranted, because if we need a third criminal defense, you know, an alternate public defender, so that they don't have a conflict, it's really a matter of making another, just a separation so that they don't have a conflict, and we have enough lawyers to cover public, indigent defense, and I am totally in support of that as a priority. Caesar's Masi, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and just a reminder that you're the oversight, so I'll be expecting to see a bill soon to entertain this. Senator Fisher, you have any questions you have?
Thank you. I guess it's a point of information. The speaker is right. When we always called it the MINAMCO contract, you know, for the seniors, and we got a substantial federal participation. I want to say it was like 80-20 or something like that. I can't imagine why we would, and that money's still out there. It's under Title VII, I think. I can't imagine why we'd be eating all of this money when all those federal dollars are out there. So I look forward to seeing what the speaker's going to be doing on it. So that's just my point of information is, yeah, the feds pay for the lion's share of this. So
Yeah,
let's use their money.
I'll be waiting for that also, especially when it deals with appropriation. Then we figure it out from there and we move on.
Yeah.
Anyone else like to speak on this chapter, in this part 2? Public defenders? I see no other hands. That part 2 is now closed. We are now at the Mayor's Council of Guam. We do have an amendment, or 2 amendments. Mayor's Council of Guam is only 3 pages, 104, 5, and 6. Part 1 of chapter 8. 1, 4, 5, and 6. 104, 5, and 6. We have 1 amendment, and I'll go ahead and entertain that amendment first. First one we entertain is the continuing appropriation and prior year obligation. Senator St. Nicholas, continuing appropriation and prior year obligation. and then I'll read off what was the impact and changes, okay? Okay, Senator Tello asked me that questions. The impact. I'll give you the impact after he does this. I'll go ahead and give you the information now. The increase is 3.5, and it's for the community workers. Remember at one year, it was done by Highway Fund. Then we were fortunate. 1 year, ARP was used. This year, we're picking it back up. Because we've been advised there's no federal funds. But before, it was always by Highway Fund. So I'm going to let him first, Senator Sinkers, bring up his amendment of the continuing appropriation and prior year obligation. Senator Sinkers?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to withdraw the amendment.
No, the continuing appropriation? The other one.
Oh, this one. This one is the one on page 106 to add a new section, chapter 8 of the bill to read, section continuing appropriations and prior year obligation authorization, notwithstanding any other provision of law, the allotted but unexpected balance of funds appropriated to the Mayor's Council of Guam for fiscal year 2024 and prior shall not lapse and shall continue to be available for prior and current year obligations until fully expended. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The system right now, if anyone wants to know what's lapsed, it's kind of slow, the system right now. We're trying to get that information, but does anyone want to speak on that amendment? Senator Barnett.
Just a point of inquiry, Mr. Chair. Is it intended to read the allotted but unexpected balance of funds appropriated to the Mayor's Council, or is that supposed to say unexpended? Is it expected or they didn't spend it?
And
So I just moved to amend that. Malago.
it should have been unexpended. Typo error. Let's take a quick recess so they can fix it. Call back to order.
Yes,
Senator Snickers,
hey,
we can fix
thank you.
this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's wonderful. Sorry, I like things when, to realize things when they're unexpected, but because it was an error, we'll just go ahead and, if the body does not mind notwithstanding, just make a correction to unexpended.
Unexpended. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Are there any objections to that correction? That being stated, Senator Barnett, do you, okay. Nothing for anyone else? Senator, Madam Speaker?
Yes, so can you just confirm, Mr. Chair, the increase from FY24 to the Mayor's Council is only that 3.5 million that we're now covering under community workers? They don't have any other, like, organic growth or the other things that you described, salary increases that we described for all the other agencies?
Okay, I'll ask that question, but I apologize, but I forgot to. Are there any objection to the amendment?
Oh, sorry.
As introduced, there being none, That amendment passes. Now back to your request. OFB, is there anything else other than for the community workers, the 3.5?
We did consider the organic growth within the mayor's office, but I believe, Senator, those amounts are minute. So we kind of, it wasn't an amount that we had to appropriate. We just put it within the body of the appropriation that we gave them, which was we felt was sufficient.
Okay, so the mayors in effect are not receiving any increase by this budget. If we did not have section 7 that says community maintenance workers 3.5, they would still be authorized to pay this, right? I mean, it's up to them.
They would be somewhat obligated to pay because they are employees of the mayor's council, but they would not have the funding to pay it. Simply because the funding they've been utilized, they utilized this year and the year before were, I believe, are ARP funds.
Yeah, but I know, but we're giving them a lump sum. So it's up to them to either use it for community service or other things, right? Is that right?
I believe the intent of the appropriation, Madam Speaker, is to pay for the community service workers.
Okay. So, and then on the section 6 is this what it reiterates again this 1.5 appropriation from the recycling revolving fund shall be used to continue, blah, blah, blah. But this is not another appropriation. This is just talking about an appropriation made earlier in the budget bill, correct?
That's correct, Senator.
All right, and then section 5 says it allows the mayor's council to issue purchase order up to $350,000 per village for recyclables. This is an increase from $150,000 last year. So this is like a waiver of the procurement law, right?
It's just increasing the level of the procurement, yeah, what they were authorized this year, which is $150,000.
All right, and this is what they use for the what do you call those cars, abandoned vehicles pickup, right?
Yes, it is.
All right,
Senator.
so yeah, I support that increase of the cap there. And, all right, well, I'm surprised, I guess, that the mayor's employees, were they covered by any of those salary increases that the rest of the government of Guam employees received?
Yes, my understanding, Senator, they were afforded and they were part of the 22%.
Okay, all right then. Okay, Sizus Masi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And just a little comment on that last page you mentioned about the community workers. We wrote it that way so that it does go to the maintenance workers, not just for the mayors to just figure out that we're going to do something else, when that was the full intention of that money. Senator Tadiwi?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rolling still on that, on section 7, on the community workers, maintenance workers, are these classified individuals?
No,
They're not classified.
that's correct.
Okay, but yet they were availed the 22%.
To my understanding, Senator, yes.
So they're limited term, correct?
They could be limited term or they could be LTAs.
Right. So they're not classified, but yet they get the 22%. I thought that was.
If my understanding, Senator, if you go back to the personnel costs, especially in the executive branch, there were quite a few of unclassified employees that were availed the 22%.
That were what? Out of.
That were given the 22%.
That were unclassified.
That's correct.
So nobody here at this legislature got the increase of 22%. Is that true?
Then let's increase our budget, and then we probably could apply it.
But none of
No.
our unclassified
No.
staff got it.
Nobody did.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to comment on the mayor's council? Senator Brown?
Couldn't pass the chance, Mr. Chairman. You know, I recall just a couple of budgets ago, before the election, I remember the Mayor's Council President was telling us that they were sure that the governor would take care of the payment for these employees and they didn't need us. You recall that, Mr. Chair, just 24 months ago. But now that, you know, these decisions get made, because like I said yesterday, I think when I leave the legislature, I know how to influence the budget process. I'll just make sure I have access to the future budget committee and let them know what I want, because you'll just put it in and then the members of the legislature can figure out if they have the votes to take it out. I don't have any problem supporting the community workers, because I think we all agree they perform a very important, vital role in our villages. I mean, they're the ones that are out there dealing with some of the less desirable and challenging things that need to be done in our community. But I'm actually curious now, because as we go along, we're being informed that, you know, what was funded by ARP is now being expected to be funded by the general fund. Decisions of policy that most of us in here, perhaps none of us in here, have had the opportunity to determine whether or not that should be the policy of the people of Guam. So I would like to know, Mr. Chair, before we vote on this budget bill, exactly how much money has been put into this budget that was paid for by ARP funding. Because I've said it, I will say it again. We had no say with regards to how these funds were spent or allocated. The governor took her leisure in how to do that and how she got to hand out her favors, including to the mayors at the time before the election, to assure that these employees would be paid. And then now we are expected, the people of Guam are now expected, with really not much of any review, to simply absorb all these positions and now pay for it moving forward, almost like it's a permanent part and structure of the government of Guam. And I think we would I certainly would like to know exactly how much money are we talking about, because you know, the reality of the short-term revenues that came in are not going to sustain themselves. And yes, we have the military buildup, and that will subside as Camp Blas is completed. And yes, maybe Anderson will have a project here or there that they need to do, as they always have over the years. The military's always had to do some upgrades, improvements. Maybe they had to renovate a hangar, build a new hangar. But you know, the future of where we are and whether or not the revenue streams that we've had coming in can sustain themselves, certainly for me, is questionable. I'm a little concerned about the continued increases that we put onto the general fund with the expectation that the people of Guam will be able to sustain the continued payment of all these obligations that we are placing on them. And yet we notice our vital industry, our tourism industry, is far from recovered. A lot of the retail shops down in Tumon, goodness, go into Tumon Sands. Shop after shop after shop is empty. Maybe some of those businesses, particularly the high-end luxury side, probably will not return back to the island. And you know, we're seeing it already in this budget, as I mentioned earlier, Mr. Chairman. We're already seeing how we are not able to fund what we see and say are the most critical parts of the government, where we interface with the public and provide services. Some of those critical areas have either been cut or they've not received increases that perhaps are really needed, and some areas direly needed. And so, since we're not really, as policymakers here, while we're going through this process, really making a decision on this budget, because it sounds like a lot of it was already predetermined for us, I'd like to know collectively how much money are we absorbing in ARP obligations that the governor of Guam, on her own, since we had no say, decided would be the priorities for the people of Guam.
I don't think they'll be able to give you that right now.
Well, could we, well, I mean,
Well,
your office
as-
put together the budget, and we're being told as we go along, this was ARP funded, that was ARP funded. I mean, they didn't collect a tabulation of all those amounts?
No, but there'll be a chance to get that before we end the budget.
I would love to know. I think we
Okay.
all would like to know how much
Yes.
money was involved in that.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Now, that would end the Mayor's Council of Guam. That is now closed. We'll now go to the Chapter 9, OPA. Chapter 9, Part 1. Okay, chapter 9, part 1. Page 107. Opiate, the increase is plus 164,106. The OPA office got an increase of 164,106.
Mr. Chair, if I may, and
For
what
what?
was that funding for? Is it for, organic growth, or is it to fund another person? Or?
Organic growth. But it's as close as, we spoke to him and he said that it's close to what he was happy what he got.
I just wanted to ask, because in the previous budget year, we did give the 1.25% of the budget to the public auditor. How does this current amount line up to that? Because I know I'm one vote short of an override. Hopefully, I'm sure I'll bring it up in the next session.
The difference, Senator, from what we appropriated in the bill versus the gross amount that we applied, the 0.25%, the difference is 46. The difference is 117,000
Plus or minus?
plus.
Okay, well, I'm going to try next session again to try on the override, because I certainly do want to see the independence of the public auditor's office, but I'm happy it's not less than. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I beg your pardon? The current, what the increase is right now? The increase is 164,106. If we were to follow that law, if the law had passed, it'd be about 100 and some thousand more. Was the 160, is organic growth?
Yes, the increase is in personnel.
Personnel. It's all in personnel. Organic growth.
Yeah, the bottom line increase is 164,000, yes.
Just the same staffing pattern, but they had raises?
Yeah, well, the staffing plan we use is the one they submitted to us, and that's the one we use, and that's the one we base this budget on.
Sorry. What does that mean, sir? Does, normally you tell us we increased it by 3 employees, or you're saying it's organic growth. Does that mean we've got the same number of employees as FY24 and they just have this much increase in their salaries, those same employees, or are we increasing the number of employees there? And by how many?
There is part of the increase, Senator, if I just go back a little bit, is they're trying to fund one position. That position actually is a recruitment in progress, and that is an accountability auditor 1. And then they're also trying to fill their vacancies internally. I think there's 2 positions there, which is an auditor 2, accountability auditor 2. Both of them are auditor ability 2.
All right. Are there lapses?
Give me a second if we can figure out. There is right now.
What did they say?
Madam Speaker, in reference to the possible lapse, we're not in or trying to get in communication with the OPA office. They're not they haven't responded yet. And I just recommend that we get that later, because we can always add that on the.
The lapses, okay. So we don't know their lapses, you're saying?
No, we don't. And they they couldn't have that much.
Oh, my understanding is they have entire funds
Well,
separate
yeah.
and apart from ours, right?
Yeah, yes, Speaker. According to OPA, they are anticipating to lapse. Okay, they have one or two positions are vacant. The reason why is we looked in the FMIS system. What's showing in the appropriation is only $98. What's being expended is $53. So we know, of course, that's wrong. So that's why and OPA is just like GVB, it's like the judiciary. DOA cuts the check to them. Once they get the check, they put it into their own account system.
Yeah, they
So
control their own funds. So
That's
you
correct.
guys have no access to that, okay.
No.
So we don't know whether the 164,000 for the one additional position can be covered by their lapses or not at this point, right? But you'll let us know?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Is there anybody else who would like to speak on the Office of Public Accountability? If not, that chapter's closed. We are now on Public Accountability and Standard and Practice, the Guam Board of Accountancy. Yeah, I know you want to all know what was the increase. It's $7,000. It's all based on their special fund tracking. $7,000, that's all it is. And we just gave them what their fund is collecting. Does anybody want to comment on that one? If not, that chapter 9, part 2 is now closed. We are now at chapter 10, Guam Visitors Bureau. And we have only one amendment, and it's only one page, it's page 109. And that is from Senator Tidegui. It's a continuing appropriate authorization for GVB. Ma'am? Oh, and let me
Mr.
tell you how much the increase first. Their increase is $5,500,000, okay? And that's all tourist attraction fund, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah,
you.
it's nice to know that one of the special funds is growing than what was predicted for in FY2024, and hopefully the tourist attraction will get to the standards before COVID. But right now, Mr. Chair, I'd like to proffer this amendment. It's continuing appropriation authorized for the Guam Visitors Bureau, notwithstanding any of the provisions of law. The allotted but unexpended balance of funds appropriated to the Guam Visitors Bureau for fiscal year 2024 and prior shall not lapse and shall be available until fully expended. And that's my amendment.
Thank you, Senator Tidegui. Does anyone like to speak to this amendment? It's a continuing appropriation for GVB, if they have any lapse. And if not, are there any objection? There being none, that is passed, the amendment. Anyone else like to speak on GVB? Madam Speaker.
Yes, so I brought this up on chapter 1 when they were looking at the special fund revenues for GVB, the tourist attraction fund increase, and the increase to the customs special service fund. And both of them seem to be based on anticipated, arrivals, but the percentage of increase very different. So I guess I just want to ask you again, why are we much more optimistic as to arrivals for GVB, the Tourist Attraction Fund, than we are for the Customs Service Fund arrivals?
The reason why it's not the same percentage, Senators, because they are calculated differently. The fees for passenger fees is just based on a flat $8.29 per passenger, and then yet there's an 11% for hotel occupancy taxes. So it's not the same.
But were you, when you're calculating your 11%, this is for room taxes, hotel taxes, right? But that's not based on passenger arrivals, it's based on something else?
Yes, we take into account that. So again, for customs, the increase again, is like $8.29, and then they also not only collect just the passenger fees, there's the cargo inspection fees, and then for the TAF, the hotel occupancy tax, we also factor in, based on what GVB has reported in SCS, for all the anticipated visitors, how many days they spend, how many people per group, like maybe 4.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. Situs Masi, thank you.
Thank you.
And do they have lapses?
Do you have any lapses? No lapses, Judy? No? Any?
From what the information I received, Senator, they do anticipate to have lapses. I don't know what the amount is at this time.
Thank you.
All right, does anyone else like to speak for the GVB? If not, that chapter is closed. Folks, we
Mr.
are
Chair?
now...
I'd like to make a motion to recess so that we have time to look at the amendments for the next chapter.
Senator Barnett, I'm going to open chapter 11.
Before you gavel that in, I second that motion.
No, hold on now. We're going to open chapter 11.
There's a motion, Mr. Chair.
Yeah,
There's
Mr.
a
Chair,
motion. Okay, go ahead.
I'm just asking that we motion before we open the chapter. So there, as colleagues know, we have a Bible of amendments for this chapter. There are about 40 amendments, and I think it would behoove the body if we recess before the chapter opens so that we can review the amendments and then also allow the opportunity for any other amendments to be entered into the drive so that we can hopefully open the chapter on Monday morning.
All the amendments are on the drive, Senator Barnett. I understand where you come from, but I'm just trying to open the chapter. Then you can officially look at them all.
I know, Mr. Chair, but the motion is to, with all due respect, to recess until Monday before you open the chapter so that we can review the amendments and afford any of the colleagues a last-minute opportunity to put any new amendments into the chapter before you open it. Because as we all know, once you open the chapter, the chair's running a tight ship. No more amendments once you open it.
That's correct. Okay, hold on. Senator Tyree?
Point of inquiry, Mr. Chair.
Okay, there's a motion, but...
Yeah, there is a motion on the floor, but in order for me to make a decision, I'd like to know, Mr. Chair, how are we going to determine which amendment in Chapter 11 that's going to be addressed first?
It's in the order it is received.
By the order of it's received?
That's correct.
Okay.
Because the Chapter 11 is pretty much wide open.
Okay.
That's
so
why I
the
just
order-
wanted to open so we can at least set the groundwork.
Okay. I just wanted to know that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. There's a motion to recess until Monday morning.
No objection.
Are there any objection to that for 8:30?
No objection.
8:30. And I hope people will come in at 8:30, but nobody's been doing that. Okay. Senator
No
Pinata,
objection.
do you have an objection or what?
Who?
I can't hear you. Did you pose an objection to recess till Monday?
No objection.
No objection?
No objection.
All right, we will see you Monday morning and we will open at 8:30. So, por favor, please come on time, folks. Thank you.